Chapter 26, Beginner's Luck. But what was that about little fire fox's evolutions? Asher cut straight to the point, skipping over all the messy personal drama. June's expression turned awkward. It's just that I've been curious about it from the start. Ignoring her hesitation, Asher continued, "You seem to trust me way too much when it came to helping little fire fox evolve. It didn't seem normal, and honestly, it didn't make sense. It had actually made him wonder if his talent had somehow been exposed. But after this little run-in today, Asher finally understood. June didn't trust him at all. She just needed an excuse to shake off that guy Don. Cough, cough. June scratched her nose in embarrassment, trying to cover up her sheepish look. I just didn't have any other options. Don's been an absolute pest. The more she spoke, the more justified she felt. This wasn't her fault. This was all Don's problem. But as she looked at Asher, June's face softened as she explained more sincerely. His parents are professors specializing in the evolution of little fire fox and red flame hound. Since our parents are close, I ended up contracting Foxy, and he contracted red flame hound. Asher nodded in understanding. Little fire fox and red flame hound were both in the canine family with fire attributes. In terms of potential and rank, they were roughly on the same level. Researching their evolution together was actually a reasonable approach. My choice to evolve Foxy into Little Fire Fox was heavily influenced by his parents, June said with a slight frown, clearly not thrilled with the idea. Asher could understand her frustration. He was also beginning to realize why she'd fed so many high-tier materials to her pet. Even if June had money to burn, she wouldn't spend it so carelessly on her own. This had to be her parents' doing. Little Fire Fox had decent potential, and if Don's parents discovered a new evolution path, they'd likely test it with other Beastmasters who owned Little Fire Foxes. June would naturally get a foot in the door as a tester, and if they never found anything, contracting Little Fire Fox still wasn't a loss. Don contracted a red flame hound, Asher said, already guessing. Right, June replied, nodding. So that's basically the story. I don't like hanging out with Don, but he uses this evolution research as an excuse to get close to me. Because of our families, I can't just brush him off without a reason. Her expression darkened. It's annoying. Asher suddenly found himself appreciating his own solitude. Being a Beastmaster from a prominent family wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And then Ivy's Nene evolved. Well, June glanced at Asher apologetically. No need to say it. I got the picture. Thanks to that whole incident, June latched onto Asher as her escape. So, was it true that June trusted him to help Little Fire Fox evolve? Not really, but using him as an excuse to dodge Don for a while? June couldn't have been happier. Asher sighed. He understood her reasoning, but using him as a smokescreen was a bit much. Well, you're forgiven. If you provide compensation for my emotional damage, Asher said with a casual smile. Just as June was about to look smug, she froze. Wait, what? Are you really asking me for money? After all the bonding we've done these past few weeks? Asher shrugged, looking at her with mock seriousness. Friends or not, compensation is compensation. That's how you keep friendships clean and unspoiled. June huffed in frustration, and Ivy couldn't help but giggle softly. Asher, you're impressive. It's rare to see June get outsmarted like this. Holding Little Fire Fox close, June mumbled indignantly to herself. Seeing her reaction, Asher decided to ease up and change the subject. So, what are you planning for Little Fire Fox's evolution? He raised an eyebrow. From the sound of it, there might actually be some progress on that front. Privately, Asher was rather interested in those professors researching Little Fire Fox and Red Flame Hound evolution. Have they discovered the Flame Queen Fox evolution path? If he could, he'd love to hear about their findings and the steps they took. Unfortunately, he wasn't exactly in a position to approach them. Don's parents have been studying Little Fire Fox and Red Flame Hound evolution for over 6 years now, June explained, frowning. If he dared say all that, they've probably had a breakthrough. But they're still far from getting Little Fire Fox to fully evolve. And if they're anywhere near actual results, we're still probably at least another year away. She didn't say it, but that was assuming things went smoothly. Reaching the stage where they're selecting Beastmasters with Little Fire Foxes to verify results? I'll probably be graduating college by then, June shook her head. I don't have the patience to wait that long. Asher blinked in surprise. Seriously? A proper evolution study took that long? He'd known it wasn't easy, but he hadn't expected the timeline to be so extensive. June saw his reaction and chuckled. Now do you get how insanely lucky you were to find out Nene could evolve? If it turns out that evolution method can be used more widely. She gave him a knowing look. The only downside is that Professor Iris will be the one publishing it. So even if it succeeds, the main credit won't go to you. Asher just smiled. He wasn't too worried about who got credit. What mattered was getting the evolution information out there, helping more beast masters understand the process. After all, the increase in Nene's recognition would benefit him far more. So now you have to help my little fire fox evolve. With your newbie luck, who knows? Maybe you'll pull it off. And this time the credit will be all yours. June's voice grew more enthusiastic. No one could steal that from you. Asher chuckled. Well, here's hoping. Whatever June's motives had been earlier didn't matter. Now that he knew about the progress Dawn's parents had made, she still chose him over her other options. So he'd do his best to help her little fire fox evolve. And, of course, he'd get a few new skills out of it. If that's the case, then once you're back, keep training little fire fox on the skills it knows and work on learning new ones. Little fire fox should have at least 4 to 5 skills under its belt to reach a solid standard. Though he spoke with a smile, Asher's tone left no room for argument. Both June and little fire fox looked at him, wide-eyed with shock. Excuse me? Did you really just say that with a straight face? More training? Even more training? The past 2 weeks of relentless work to learn just one skill had drained all their summer energy. They were counting on some downtime now. Recalling the constant struggle and countless skirmishes during training, both of them shuddered. With a whole month of summer vacation left, getting 2 new skills isn't impossible. If you push a little, 3 skills could even be within reach. Asher's tone was rock solid as he delivered the cold truth. June and little fire fox furiously shook their heads. Nope, not happening. We're out. No more training. Asher shifted his gaze to Ivy. Ivy, can I trust you to keep an eye on them? It's for their own good. If they don't work hard now, they'll regret it later. He looked Ivy right in the eye, sincerity pouring from his expression. All for June's trust. All for his future skill siphoning plans. This duo was headed for some intense training. Chapter 27. A thoughtful pet beast? Don't believe the hype. Or out of case. Ivy nodded before she even realized it, caught off guard by Asher's steady gaze that held such unshakable trust. Her response came out faster than her mind could keep up. June's protest came loudly from the side. Ivy, what happened to best friends forever? Is our friendship just gone like that? Ivy's cheeks flushed as she looked away shyly, then turned to June with a soft smile. I'll be right there with you, June. So, isn't that okay? She blinked her eyes with such a hopeful expression that it left June defenseless. June, I can't say no. I just can't. Turning down Asher was easy enough, but refusing Ivy? Impossible. Yip, 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 yip. Little Fire Fox chomped on June's coat sleeve and whined with all the desperation it could muster. You can't handle it? Well, I can. But I don't want to train. Little Fire Fox's angry yips drew the attention of the nearby Little Raven, who turned her unblinking gaze toward the fox. Little Fire Fox, carrot, Little Raven, underscore. Yip, yip, yip. What are you looking at? I beat you. Little Raven, underscore. Yip, 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 yip. Just you wait. Next time I'll pummel you. Little Raven, undeterred, dug her claws into Asher's shoulder and snuggled closer, nudging her head affectionately against him. "Hm? Hungry?" Asher asked, glancing down at Little Raven. She nodded, her one little tuft of hair swaying in the breeze. Without hesitation, Asher pulled out the snacks he always kept in his pocket for her. He found a shaded spot and settled down to feed her. Little Fire Fox, feeling entirely ignored, let out an outraged yip. Yip, yip, yip. Little Fire Fox, indignant, purely, unbelievably indignant. With a huff, it reached out and smacked June's arm with its paw. Training? It would go home and train right now. It was going to learn powerful fire skills. Blazing Inferno. Dance of Flames. Flame Burst. and show that smug bird who was boss. Unfortunately, June didn't quite understand her pet's passion. "Are you hungry too?" she asked, fishing out a few ember fruits from her bag. "I brought these along. Want some?" The moment little fire fox heard the words ember fruit, its anger dissipated, and its eyes sparkled with delight. "Ember fruit? Oh yes, please." Eating gave it the energy it needed to stay mad at that bird. June and Ivy sat beside Asher as he fed Little Raven. June shared her ember fruit with Little Fire Fox, and Ivy, after a moment's thought, released Fairy Butterfly. At the battle center, there had been too many onlookers for her to feel comfortable releasing the rare Fairy Butterfly. But here on the street, passers-by would only give a quick glance, too busy to pay it much mind. "Here, Nene, have some nectar." Ivy opened a small flask filled with nectar she'd specially prepared for her Fairy Butterfly. "Fairy Butterfly's grown really well," Asher commented. It had been a while since he'd checked on it, so he activated his talent and took a look. Beast, Fairy Butterfly. Attribute, Fairy. Species, mid-level extraordinary, low tier. Level, Stage 2 mid-tier. Skills, Sweet Nectar, Wind Blade, Heart of Guardian, Fairy Flash. Thoughts, Love Ivy, will protect Ivy forever. It seemed Fairy Butterfly had learned a new skill, Fairy Flash, and advanced from Stage 2 low tier to mid-tier. Asher could tell Ivy had been putting in consistent effort to train her pet. Satisfied, he decided to check in on Little Fire Fox next. Beast, Little Fire Fox. Attribute, Fire. Species, mid-level extraordinary, low tier. Level, Stage 2, high tier plus. Skills, Flame Bite, Fire Burst, Fireball. Evolution paths, Blaze Fox, Flame Queen Fox. Not meeting evolution criteria. Thoughts, eat more, train harder. Fox shall get strong, evolve, and crush that bird. Asher closed the window, a few question marks floating above his head. Sure, Little Fire Fox's desire to get stronger was definitely a positive thing. A driven beast would learn skills faster and evolve sooner. After all, if things went well, June might even end up with a Blaze Fox or Flame Queen Fox. And when that time came, he could finally siphon off some skills from her pet, bringing Little Raven one step closer to her own evolution. But Little Fire Fox's motivation seemed, well, a little misdirected. Is it because of... Asher glanced down at Little Raven, who was happily munching on her snack. Feeling his gaze, she looked up with her beady black eyes, tilting her head slightly before reaching out a tiny claw and pushing a slice of fruit toward him. "Here, eat it. I can take care of you." Amused, Asher accepted the offering. "Thank you, Little Raven." "Yes." No need to question Little Fire Fox's inner thoughts too much. If everyone is happy, that is enough. Seeing him finish the fruit, Little Raven nodded approvingly and resumed her own snack, completely at ease. Asher, however, found himself met with a pair of strange, bemused stares from June and Ivy. "Asher, you," Ivy trailed off, unsure of how to put it. June, on the other hand, had no filter. "Did you just take food from your pet? Are you even human?" Asher could only laugh awkwardly. Trying to explain would just make things stranger. Honestly, he'd first tasted the food out of curiosity. But somehow, that single bite had sparked a habit where Little Raven would insist on sharing every meal with him. If he didn't eat what she offered, she'd keep nudging him with her wings until he did. Eventually, he just gave in. As long as it wasn't something unappetizing like red mud worms, he'd let her share. The two of them were entirely used to it by now and thought nothing of it. It was only when they went out that it started to seem unusual. "It's a bit complicated," Asher said with a helpless shrug. "But think of it as just one of Little Raven's quirks." June looked dubious. Ivy, on the other hand, smiled gently. "Little Raven really likes you. Most pet beasts don't share their food so easily." As if to prove her wrong, Fairy Butterfly folded its wings, nudging Ivy's water flask closer to her. "Yip, you drink too, Ivy. I love you too." Ivy's face lit up, and she hugged Fairy Butterfly lightly in thanks. June, meanwhile, looked down at her own pet, who was still happily munching ember fruit, oblivious to the world. Little Fire Fox, a thoughtful pet? Don't fall for that scam. Download the anti-fraud Pet Beast app now. June muttered under her breath. Ingrate. Seeing the other pets being so affectionate, she couldn't help but feel a bit of envy. She'd probably be driven up the wall by her pet one of these days. After everyone had eaten and rested, Asher reluctantly agreed to join the girls for a little shopping spree at the pet supply supercenter. June went wild with her shopping, while Ivy carefully selected a variety of flavored nectar. Asher, sticking to a tight budget, picked out some reasonably priced fruit. Do what you can with what you have, he thought, not the least bit ashamed. Then, while Asher took little Raven to the breeding center for her vaccination, June, under pressure from little Firefox's repeated, urgent pawing, headed straight home with Ivy to begin their special training. A fresh Monday morning, Asher had settled comfortably into this routine. The only hitch was that the pay wasn't quite enough. I should probably look for a part-time job, he mused, lounging at the service station's entrance and basking in the morning sun. Browsing his phone, he flipped through listings for anything that might suit him. Pets were expensive, and as for pet beasts, they were a whole different story. Before contracting Little Raven, the wages from his service station work had been more than enough. But since Little Raven came along, he'd barely bought anything, and his money was already running low. He sighed, just gotta take on a bit more. Little Raven deserves it. He quickly glanced at his phone. June actually sent the compensation fee. He smiled at the 3,000 yuan transfer, impressed but not surprised. She is a true heiress, after all. Just as he was reviewing a part-time job listing for a pet beast training assistant position, his phone suddenly began to vibrate. Buzz! 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 His chat app went wild. Messages flooded in, notifications exploding one after another. Before he could react, video calls from multiple contacts came in at once. The phone froze, the screen locked up, and then abruptly it shut down. Chapter 28. Academic Conference Announcement. News Explosion. Asher stared at his phone, which had completely frozen. After trying everything from tapping to shaking it, the device refused to come back to life. He sighed, glancing at the video call request before his phone had gone haywire. Among the callers was none other than Arthur, his homeroom teacher. It seemed like something important had happened. Grabbing Little Raven, Asher turned back into the service station. He connected his phone to the charger, hoping the charging resurrection method would work. As he plugged in the phone, the equipment room door slammed open. Ron strode out, but when he saw Asher, his footsteps froze mid-step. "Ron?" Asher asked, puzzled by the older man's strange expression. Ron gave him a complex look, his face a mix of exasperation and disbelief. "What's going on?" Asher asked, tilting his head. Ron took a deep breath before replying. "About 10 minutes ago, Professor Iris held an academic press conference." Asher blinked after understanding what it meant. "So, Professor Iris's paper on Honeybug is complete. But a press conference? That's good. Honeybug evolving will help a lot of Beastmasters." Asher nodded casually, his tone calm. "And then?" His eyes signaled Ron to continue. The sight made Ron's temple twitch. Asher's utter indifference to the significance of what had happened left him speechless. "Professor Iris mentioned your name during the conference," Ron finally said with a voice indicating his frustration. Asher's brows furrowed. "Mention me? For what?" "Apparently, she credited you for discovering the honeybug's evolution." Asher was even more confused. "Credit me? For accidentally finding out about the honeybug's potential? That doesn't make sense." He shook his head. "Unless Professor Iris somehow figured out my innate skill, it's not possible." Noticing Asher's visible confusion, Ron sighed deeply. "You'll figure it out when your phone turns back on," he muttered before turning away. "I need some peace. Don't ask me any more questions." Ron left a baffled Asher standing there. After half an hour of waiting, Asher's phone finally revived. Setting aside the book he'd been reading, Beast Evolution Studies, 5 Centuries of Practice, he cautiously powered the phone back on. Thankfully, no incoming calls or messages overwhelmed it this time. Let's see what all the fuss was about. He opened his messaging app. Immediately, a deluge of notifications flooded the screen. Class group chat, 999 plus messages. Private messages. Asher opened his conversation with Vicky first. The first message he saw was a video link and a short recording. Curious, he played the recording first. The clip featured Professor Iris, standing on a stage in a large auditorium. The backdrop displayed an extensive presentation of the fairy butterfly's anatomy and evolution process. And that concludes the critical factors determining honeybug evolution. Professor Iris's white coat gave her a professional aura, her hair pinned neatly in a bun. Her voice was steady and filled with scholarly gravitas. The atmosphere was intimidating, commanding attention from everyone in the room. But then, her icy demeanor melted into a gentle smile. It was a rare, breathtaking moment, like the blooming of a snow lotus. The evolution process is more demanding than I initially anticipated. It turns out that only unwavering love and trust can nurture a honeybug brave enough to undergo such a transformation. Professor Iris's gaze softened as she continued. At this point, I must thank someone who played a vital role in this discovery. Asher from the Aspen Grove Village Service Station. Asher was the first to save a honeybug, breaking the 1,200-year misconception that honeybug cannot evolve. Moreover, during our experimental process, he proposed including individuals who genuinely care for their honeybug. This suggestion proved invaluable. Without Asher's discovery and insight, this academic breakthrough wouldn't have been possible. I am sincerely grateful to him and hope that one day, Asher will become my student. I believe he will carve out a groundbreaking path in pet beast evolution. The video ended, leaving Asher stunned. Did she just spend half her speech praising me? Scratching his head, he muttered, "That was a bit much." After replaying the video twice to process everything, he opened the link Vicky had sent. Unfortunately, it was for a live stream that had already ended. Shaking his head, Asher scrolled through the rest of Vicky's messages. "Vicky dude, you're alive? I thought you abandoned us peasants after becoming a star overnight." Asher, my phone crashed. Only just got it working again. Vicky, classic you. Anyway, bro, you are legendary. I watched the whole conference. Who'd have thought the quiet, low-key Asher in our class was actually a hidden prodigy? Seriously, man, when are you going to let me hug your thigh? Asher, call me daddy and I'll think about it. Vicky daddy. After some lighthearted banter, Asher got a clearer picture. When Professor Iris announced her academic findings, class teacher Arthur was the first to notice the connection to Asher's earlier hints. He shared the livestream link in their class chat. At first, no one believed it. But when Professor Iris explicitly thanked Asher, the group chat exploded. Now, Asher's name was associated with one of the most groundbreaking discoveries in recent pet beast history. Well, this escalated quickly. Asher sighed, glancing at the dozens of unread messages in his inbox. Beyond the class chat, there were also messages from Professor Iris herself, Ivy, June, and even President Rob, the New York City Beastmaster Association president. The sheer scale of this buzz was far beyond what he'd expected. "Looks like I underestimated how big of a deal this really is," Asher muttered. Pausing, he decided to cut through the noise and go straight to the source. Dialing Professor Iris's number, he pressed the call button. It barely rang twice before she picked up. Her warm voice carried through the line. "Did you enjoy the press conference?" Chapter 29, A Monumental Discovery. Asher coughed lightly to mask his embarrassment. "I've only seen the part where you praised me. I'll watch the rest of the conference later," he admitted before quickly changing the topic. Wasn't this supposed to be about publishing a paper? Why the sudden academic press conference? Professor Iris scoffed softly. Some stubborn skeptics thought I was joking and tried to block my spot in the top journals. So I decided to hold a press conference instead, slam the evidence in their faces, and leave them no room for debate. Asher couldn't help but give her a thumbs up impressed. "But wasn't your praise for me a bit over the top?" He sounded a little uneasy. Her tone remained calm, but carried a hint of teasing. "It was an academic press conference. I didn't mind giving you a bit more credit since you contributed significantly. And I genuinely want you as my student. It wasn't over the top." Before Asher could press for more details, Professor Iris interrupted, her voice brisk. "Check the messages from Rob. I have other matters to attend to. Talk later." With that, she decisively ended the call. Asher stared at his phone, feeling that something about the conversation was off. Professor Iris seemed busy, yet still answered his call immediately. However, when he tried to ask deeper questions, she brushed him off. Shrugging, he He searched online and quickly found the full recording of the press conference. As the video loaded, Asher noticed the topic had already gone viral, sparking heated discussions across the internet. Little Raven perched on his shoulder, leaning forward to peek at the phone screen. Amused, Asher held the phone closer to the bird. Whether Little Raven understood or not, he wanted the bird to feel included. Satisfied with the gesture, Little Raven rubbed its head against Asher's neck, letting out a soft coo. As he watched the recording and scrolled through Weibo topics simultaneously, the full magnitude of the situation dawned on him. The key issue: ordinary people. Under normal circumstances, only awakened beastmasters with spiritual sea abilities could contract and control beasts. Ordinary people weren't prohibited from raising low-tier creatures like honeybugs, as these posed no significant danger due to their low spiritual energy and lack of offensive capabilities. Honeybugs, with their adorable appearance, vibrant colors, and extended lifespans compared to regular insects, had always been popular among a niche group of bug enthusiasts. But everything changed with the revelation of the fairy butterfly. At the press conference, Professor Iris revealed that finding suitable honeybugs among beastmasters for evolution experiments had been challenging due to their rarity in contracts. Following Asher's suggestion, she expanded her search to include honeybugs raised by ordinary people. 2 such bugs successfully evolved into fairy butterflies. The bombshell? The evolved fairy butterflies not only exhibited no hostility toward their ordinary owners, but even showed protective behavior. The news sent shockwaves through both the general public and the Beastmaster community. The public's reaction: ordinary people were ecstatic. 2 confirmed cases of evolved fairy butterflies displaying protective behavior meant they might have a chance to own beasts too. Could there be other beasts with similar traits? They wanted to find out. Everyone was eager to raise their own pet beasts. The Beastmaster community's concerns: Beastmasters were far less optimistic. Contracting beasts wasn't easy, even for the awakened. Many struggled to tame their beasts despite spiritual connections and had to rely on the contract's restraints. Giving such creatures to unawakened individuals seemed reckless. Even if only 1 in 100 fairy butterflies turned aggressive, the potential damage was catastrophic. Without contracts to restrain them, evolved fairy butterflies, classified as mid-tier beasts, could wreak havoc on people and infrastructure. The debate was fierce, with neither side willing to back down. On Weibo, the topic trended wildly, drawing a mix of curious onlookers, hopeful enthusiasts, and skeptical critics. Asher scrolled through the posts, his jaw slowly dropping. "Am I really about to change history?" he muttered, his voice tinged with disbelief. The sheer scope of this discovery was hitting him all at once. The ripple effect wasn't just limited to the Beastmaster world. It touched the lives of countless ordinary people. Asher gulped. Too much responsibility. "I'm out." He quickly convinced himself that resolving societal dilemmas was beyond a mere high schooler like him. His job was to discover new evolution routes for beasts. The rest? That was for the government and the Alliance to figure out. Reassured by his decision to step back, Asher turned his attention to more immediate concerns. "None of this matters to me right now. I should focus on motivating June's little firefox. The sooner it evolves, the closer Little Raven gets to its next stage." Hearing its name, Little Raven tilted its head curiously, its tuft of feathers brushing against Asher's neck. The ticklish sensation made him laugh. "Personal space, Little Raven," he chided gently, nudging the bird back. But Little Raven puffed up indignantly. "Personal space? Never. I like sticking close." Defiantly, the bird nestled deeper into Asher's collarbone, its round body fitting snugly into place. Asher sighed in defeat. He reached out to lift the stubborn bird, but one glare from its beady eyes made him give up. "Well, it's not a big deal," he muttered. "If sticking close makes you happy, who am I to say no?" Unconsciously, his standards for what counted as acceptable behavior shifted just a little further. After replying to messages from Ivy, June, and the class group chat, Asher finally opened President Rob's texts. As expected of an older man, the Beastmaster Association president had sent multiple long voice messages. The first message played. "Asher, You've been selected as an outstanding staff member at the Aspen Grove Village Pet Beast Service Station. The second message. Given your contribution to the honeybug's evolution discovery, I've applied for a special Beastmaster subsidy on your behalf. Once approved, you'll receive 20,000 yuan monthly until you graduate high school. If you attend a local university, the subsidy can continue. Asher's eyes lit up. 20,000 yuan a month? Is this real? An hour ago, he'd been searching for part-time jobs to make ends meet. Now he had a steady income falling into his lap. No matter what, he had to make time for this. Quickly composing himself, Asher recorded a voice message. Thank you, President Rob. I can't let work suffer, so I'll visit the association this Saturday at 9 a.m. Meanwhile, in a conference room filled with professors and alliance members, Rob played the message out loud. As the recording ended, the president smiled warmly. Such a hard-working and responsible young man. Chapter 30. The indispensable 1% inspiration. The room was packed with professors specializing in pet evolution from across New York City. These experts were usually hard to pin down, either buried in their lab work or chasing fleeting sparks of inspiration on the road. Yes, inspiration. The discovery and research of new evolutionary pathways for pets relied on 99% solid theory, tireless effort, and most crucially, that rare, brilliant 1% spark. When news broke at today's academic conference about the evolution of the honeybug, everyone flocked to the Beast Tamer Alliance in New York City. The fairy butterfly's evolutionary process was discovered in a small town under New York City's jurisdiction. How could they have not known about this until now? They were desperate to take a closer look at the very first successfully evolved honeybug. But contacting the young girl directly? Too risky. What if they scared her off? Reaching out to Asher, on the other hand, seemed like a better option. After all, as the first person to successfully assist a honeybug in evolving, Asher might hold the key to their next big breakthrough. However, all of them were firmly blocked by President Rob. His reasoning? Simple and straightforward. With a solemn expression, President Rob had explained that if they all went to see Asher, it could disrupt his mindset. After all, Asher was about to start his final year of high school, grade 12. It was only after President Rob showed them 2 surveillance videos from the incident, over and over again, that the professors reluctantly backed down. Disrupt Asher's mindset? Why not talk about how Iris' public address at the conference was far more likely to affect Asher's mental state instead? And to make matters worse, President Rob even had the audacity to brag about Asher in front of them. The nerve! The professors' gazes toward President Rob grew increasingly murderous. Sensing the tension, President Rob let out an awkward chuckle and quickly stepped aside, revealing the massive snow wolf behind him. Thinking of attacking him? Better think twice. After a long tug-of-war, President Rob finally sent the surveillance footage to each of the professors. Only then did he manage to shoo them out of the building. Left alone in the now-empty conference room, President Rob stretched his sore back and let out a long sigh of relief. Finally got rid of them. Being the president of New York City's Beast Tamer Alliance was no easy job. But when he thought about how the first evolved honeybug came from New York City and the resources and prestige this would bring to the Alliance, President Rob felt it was all worth it. As the saying goes, never forget the one who dug the well when drinking its water. Both Iris and Asher deserved full credit for this achievement. With a smile of satisfaction, President Rob dove back into the extensive follow-up work required. In the luxurious Rose Villa district of New York City, Henry Epstein and Marie Wayne, father and mother of Dawn, had opted to return home instead of immediately diving back into their research. Honeybug evolution. Iris' luck is better than ours, Henry said with a hint of helplessness in his tone. It's been 6 years. We've only just scratched the surface of a feasible evolutionary pathway for the little firefox and the blazing flamehound. Even if everything goes smoothly, we're looking at another 3 years, at least from our first success to validated results. Marie patted her husband's shoulder, unsure how to console him. She wasn't alone in this sentiment. Every professor present at Iris's conference felt the same way. Was it Iris who discovered the honeybug's potential for evolution? No. Was she the key to proving the honeybug's evolution was viable? Also no. So, what role did Iris play? Given the same clues and opportunities, any one of them could have achieved the same results. That student, Asher, Marie frowned slightly, unsure how to evaluate him. The answer to both questions was Asher. It was Asher who discovered the honeybug's evolutionary potential and played a critical role in proving it. Yet Asher wasn't even part of their pet evolution research circle. He was just a student, a high school senior, no less. A student with only basic knowledge from school, little understanding of pet evolution, and an uncanny knack for miraculous success. Even knowing that Asher was a beast tamer in training, supposedly self-studying pet evolution, Marie couldn't help but feel uneasy. What is this? Beginner's luck? Every cast a catch. For a moment, Marie even considered steering her son toward pet evolution research. Surely this beginner's luck couldn't be exclusive to Asher, right? But no, she dismissed the thought. Their experiment had been 6 years in the making, and they were so close to results. There was no way they would let a child meddle in it. Unaware of his wife's wandering thoughts, Henry took a deep breath to calm himself before turning to console her instead. All right, let's not focus on others. Whether it's Iris or Asher, we should respect and admire their discoveries. And besides, their success isn't without benefits for us. The Honeybug's evolution report would undoubtedly earn the New York City Beast Tamer Alliance substantial rewards and resources, which would trickle down to local professors like them. Their visit to President Rob earlier wasn't just about the shocking Honeybug news. It was also to subtly inquire about upcoming resource allocations. Unfortunately, President Rob was as cunning as ever, refusing to commit to any promises. Still, they were sure that increased resources were coming. All they had to do was wait. Marie nodded, though her emotions lagged behind her rational acceptance. 6 years of effort versus someone else's 1 month. Marie sighed deeply, attempting to calm her restless heart. Meanwhile, Asher remained unaffected by the storms brewing outside, thanks to the dual protection of Iris and President Rob. He focused on his routine, steadily guiding little Raven forward step by step. The most significant impact from Iris's academic conference was the soaring public awareness of the fairy butterfly's evolution. In just 2 days, the public recognition points for the fairy butterfly had skyrocketed to an astonishing 57,300. This meant over 5,370 people now fully understood the fairy butterfly's evolutionary process. 2 days, that growth rate was mind-blowing. However, Asher knew this was an exception. The rapid increase in recognition didn't mean all new pet evolution pathways would gain popularity as quickly. It was simple to understand. Who would bother to learn the complete evolution of a supernatural creature? Other than researchers, students, and beast tamers with specific needs, most people wouldn't. But the honeybug was different. Its evolution appealed to a wide audience, including ordinary people and every beast tamer. It didn't matter if they planned to contract or raise one. Knowing the process could come in handy someday. Contracting a honeybug was easy, after all. Other supernatural creatures? Not so much. If only public recognition points were universal. Then, when Little Firefox evolves, I could immediately do a 10-skill draw, Asher lamented with a hint of regret. A nice thought, but impossible. Still, it wasn't a problem. If Little Firefox evolved into the Firefox Queen, her unique status and power as a species leader would naturally attract attention from many beast tamers. Would he even need a 10 draw? Unnecessary. Between the fairy butterfly and Little Firefox, their combined skill pool didn't even reach 10. So, let's do a single draw today, Asher said with a smile, feeling particularly confident as he got out of bed. After carefully washing his hands and face, Asher prepared himself for the draw with great focus. Chapter 31, A Not-So-Cursed 10-Pull. After thoroughly washing his hands and face, ritual complete, Asher sat down, mentally prepared. Superstition or not, it was good psychological prep. With a deep breath, he opened his talent interface. The fairy butterfly section now displayed a new option, skill extraction. Excited yet apprehensive, Asher clicked on it. A new dilemma immediately presented itself. Single pull. 10 pull. Asher froze for 3 seconds. Somehow, from this simple interface, he felt the unspoken words "pay to win" staring him down. Though it wasn't his wallet being drained, gathering recognition points was no easy task. For a moment, Asher considered closing the interface altogether, pretending he hadn't seen anything. He could grab breakfast, go about his day, and forget this gotcha-style mechanic even existed. But in the end, he sighed. If I have to face it sooner or later, might as well rip the bandage off now. Resolving himself, he hovered over the options for less than a second before decisively selecting 10 pull. True bravery was all about going big. All in. The results rolled in. Miss pull. Miss pull. Miss pull. Miss pull. Purple item. Lucky 4-leaf clover. Miss pull. White item. Book. Care guide for mythical birds. 3-legged golden crow. 10 pulls. An entire 10 pull. And not a single skill? Asher stared at the results, his emotions oscillating wildly between anger and despair. If this interface weren't intangible, he'd be smashing it with a chair right now. Skills. Where are my skills? He bellowed internally. Is this system seriously about to hit me with a pity guarantee mechanic? Taking deep breaths to keep his temper in check, Asher managed to avoid giving himself a morning aneurysm. Calm down, stay calm. At least he'd gotten something, right? Right? After an intense self-pep talk, Asher plastered a seemingly calm smile across his face. Little Raven, perched nearby, saw his owner's unsettling grin and quietly shuffled farther away. Asher noticed. With a swift yet gentle motion, he grabbed the bird and placed it on his shoulder. Little Raven, don't you love sticking close to me? Running off hurts my feelings. The small bird stiffened, its tuft of fluffy feathers swaying nervously. Little Raven, is it something I did? Did I cross a line? Feeling a twinge of guilt, the bird began reflecting on its recent actions, wondering if it had somehow wronged its beastmaster. Seeing Little Raven lost in thought, Asher chuckled and relented. You're just too cute, you know that? The heartfelt compliment snapped the bird out of its brooding. It tilted its head before spreading its soft wings, offering Asher an adorable, clumsy hug. With a laugh, Asher placed Little Raven against his collarbone, its favorite spot for snuggling. Now in a much better mood, Asher turned his attention back to his loot. Lucky 4-leaf clover. Purple item, when carried, grants a temporary luck boost. Effect halved when gifted to others. Book. White item. Enhances understanding of 3-legged golden crows, improving training and care techniques for related beasts. Missed pull. Accumulate 10 missed pulls to earn 1 universal draw. Guaranteed skill drop after 30 pulls. Asher blinked. For a moment, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. 10 pulls, and this was the result. Yet somehow, it didn't feel as devastating anymore. Looking at the guarantees and cumulative mechanics, he began piecing together the system's rules. Skills were clearly the main prize, with a hard pity guarantee after 30 pulls. Additionally, every 10 missed pulls earned him a universal draw applicable to all his contracted beasts. Asher glanced at the rapidly climbing recognition points for the fairy butterfly. With this kind of pace, the system's mechanics suddenly didn't seem so bad. Besides, Fairy Butterfly's remaining skill pool wasn't particularly large or diverse. Using it to soften the odds for his future, Firefox Queen, was a reasonable strategy. He looked at Little Raven thoughtfully. Beast. Oriental Peacock. Species. Mid-tier, low rank. Level. Tier 2, high rank. Skills. Eagle Eye. Guardian's Heart, Peck. Evolution Path. 3-legged golden crow locked. Evolution items. Incomplete. Mood. Warm and fuzzy. Wants more snuggles. Asher smiled. You really are too precious, Little Raven. Curiosity led him to open the detailed progress tracker for the Golden Crow evolution path. Affinity. 49 out of 100. Synchronization. 31 of 100. Beastmaster mental space. 1+/4. Sunlight exposure. 17 days. Moonlight exposure, 17 days. Little Raven's mental strength, 1-/4. Fire skills, 0/. Special skills, 2/. Refined fire, incomplete. The quantified data laid out months of effort in black and white. However, Asher frowned slightly at the affinity value. Only 49? I'd have thought it'd be higher. He glanced down at little Raven, who was sprawled on his palm like a boneless dumpling. How is this not maxed out affection? Still, the synchronization score was a pleasant surprise. After all, they hadn't done much coordinated training. Curious, he recalled seeing a similar score between June and Little Firefox. If 6 months of bonding only brought their affinity to 68, perhaps these values were more complex than they appeared. Asher made a mental note to investigate later. He also noticed 2 particular stats. Beastmaster mental space, 1+/4. Little Raven's mental strength, 1-/4. It seemed he was on the verge of unlocking capacity for a second contract. Conversely, Little Raven's mental strength barely met the minimum threshold for contracting. Guess I'll need to add meditation to your training regimen, Asher said, stroking Little Raven's feathered crest. Little Raven, _. The small bird's eyes widened in disbelief as its plumage fluffed defensively. Don't worry, Asher added with a kind smile. We'll combine it with sunbathing for efficiency. The bird's bean-shaped eyes shimmered, pleading. Asher was unmoved. No negotiation on training. Gentle voice, merciless intent. Little Raven turned away, its tail aimed squarely at Asher in protest. Unable to hold back his laughter, Asher reached for Little Raven's breakfast, a mix of fresh fruits and red mudworms. The bird's resolve instantly crumbled at the sound of food rustling. Gone was the sullen act as it perked up, hopping eagerly toward its meal. After its feast, Little Raven flopped dramatically into Asher's palm, wings flailing. Rub my belly, its movements demanded. Asher chuckled softly, obliging the spoiled bird. And just like that, all grievances were forgotten. As far as Little Raven was concerned, nothing out of the ordinary had happened that morning. Asher, mission accomplished. Chapter 32. Stuck at the most unexpected place. Clocking in, Asher started the day, another chapter in the life of a diligent worker. As he sat down at his desk, Asher found his thoughts wandering to an unresolved question. Affinity and synchronization levels can be improved, mental energy can be cultivated, and there is a clear path for both special and fire attribute skills. But what about true fire? True fire, a manifestation of the innate flame honed by fire attribute beasts through mastery of their abilities. It was a rare phenomenon, one that might not appear even among 100 fire attribute creatures. He glanced at Little Raven. The Oriental peacock's natural attribute leaned toward the special category, but the 3-legged golden crow, the target evolution, sounded distinctly fire-aligned. Perhaps it was a dual attribute beast, fire and special. Mastering fire skills without a fire attribute, and then cultivating true fire. Asher smiled wryly. Surely his talent skill wasn't setting him up for failure? There had to be some prerequisite condition he hadn't unlocked yet, right? He decided to shelve the thought for now. Life was already challenging enough. No need to make it harder for himself. Maybe once Little Raven masters fire skills, its latent bloodline will awaken, and its fire attribute will skyrocket. He consoled himself. The workweek flew by quickly. Little Raven's training regimen grew increasingly rigorous, occupying most of its time and yielding significant progress. It was now teetering on the edge of a breakthrough to Tier 2 Advanced. Even its mental energy had improved, moving past the previous dash designation. The only outlier was the affinity stat, still stubbornly stuck at 49, like a threshold it simply refused to cross. But Asher wasn't in a rush. After all, he and Little Raven had only been together for less than a month. These things took time. Little Raven would come around eventually. Saturday arrived, and as soon as his special alarm went off, Asher grabbed Little Raven and headed into the city. Their destination? The New York City Beastmaster Alliance. The front desk was familiar, but the receptionist's attitude had shifted dramatically. The same young lady he had met twice before widened her eyes in surprise the moment she saw him, clearly recognizing him. "Why, you're Mr. Asher, right?" she stammered, offering a nervous smile. Asher was puzzled. What's with this formality? That's me. Just call me Asher. Here's my provisional Beast Master ID. The receptionist quickly scanned his ID, confirming his identity. Then, rather than simply returning it, she stepped out from behind the desk and handed it back to him with both hands, her smile visibly forced. Please follow me. President Rob is waiting in his office, she said. Asher nodded and followed her down the hall. Once she left him at the office door, the receptionist returned to the front desk, where she collapsed into her chair with a dramatic sigh of relief. Phew, that scared me to death, she muttered, visibly shaken. One of her colleagues raised an eyebrow. What's there to be scared about? That guy looks so gentle. Yeah, you're such a scaredy cat, another chimed in. The receptionist shot them both a glare. Then why didn't either of you handle it? The moment he walked in, you shoved me forward. Her co-workers wisely shut their mouths. After all, compared to ordinary people like them, Beast Masters were on another level. Who knew if someone as seemingly mild-mannered as Asher would turn out to have a temper now that his reputation was growing? The receptionist sneered inwardly. If this were a lesson in teamwork, her colleagues had just flunked it spectacularly. Meanwhile, Asher stepped into President Rob's office. Behind the desk, Rob was deeply focused on a stack of documents. The moment he spotted Asher, however, his expression transformed into a beaming smile. Right on time, not a second early or late. 9:01 sharp. Rob strode over, extending a hand before Asher could even react. Caught off guard, Asher found both his hands clasped tightly in Rob's firm grip. President Rob, he greeted politely, his smile unfaltering. No need for formalities. Call me Uncle Rob. Rob released his hands only to pat Asher's shoulder affectionately, guiding him further into the room. I knew the moment I saw you last time. You're not an ordinary young man. And now, you've proven it by helping little Iris so much. Asher nodded at appropriate intervals, neither agreeing nor disagreeing too much. Rob's enthusiasm might be genuine, but as the president of the New York City Beastmaster Alliance, he wouldn't treat someone with such warmth without a reason. Asher hadn't forgotten how Rob had behaved during their first meeting. Polite but distant, his words tinged with a faint condescension when offering help. Still, Asher didn't hold a grudge. In the adult world, relationships were often transactional. Back then, he hadn't demonstrated much value. But now, Asher glanced at the overly genial Rob, curious about what had changed. He couldn't figure it out, so he set the thought aside. As long as it didn't involve his talent skill being discovered, everything else was secondary. After some polite conversation, Rob finally retrieved a document from his desk and handed it over. This is the special subsidy I applied for on your behalf. Take a look, then sign the form at the end. You'll need to provide a photocopy of your ID card, too. Starting this month, you'll receive the subsidy, Rob explained concisely. Thank you, Uncle Rob. Asher skimmed through the document, his eyebrows raising slightly. He looked up surprised. Isn't this amount a bit too high? When Rob had initially mentioned the subsidy in a message, 2,000 yuan per month, Asher had already been impressed by the Beastmaster Alliance's generosity. After all, while 2,000 yuan wasn't a lot for someone raising a pet beast as a supplementary allowance, it was a significant sum. But seeing the actual terms today, Asher realized that 2,000 yuan was the highest tier of subsidies, reserved for those who met exceptionally stringent criteria. It's not too high at all. Honestly, it's still too low for your contributions, Rob said with a wave of his hand. You discovered the critical point in honeybug evolution and provided valuable verification. That's a major achievement. If not for your age and current academic status, I'd have applied for the Evolution Research Special Grant for you instead. Hearing this, Asher froze. The Evolution Research Special Grant wasn't just another subsidy. It was for professionals specializing in beast evolution research, aged 20 to 40, with a minimum monthly amount of 100,000 yuan. Asher's jaw nearly dropped. A gap from 100,000 to 2,000 yuan? That was a bit much to process. Still, he quickly composed himself. He hadn't expected any extra compensation from the honeybug evolution research, so even 2,000 yuan felt like a windfall. After filling out the necessary paperwork and signing his name, Asher handed the form back to Rob. Once I get into university, I'll trouble you to apply for the grant again, Uncle Rob. Absolutely. As long as you're admitted to a suitable program in this province. Leave it to me, Rob promised with a hearty laugh. He was just about to lead Asher to the copier when his phone rang. Raising a hand in apology, he stepped aside to answer it. Follow my earlier instructions. The mine's opening must wait until I've confirmed everything with the experts. Chapter 33. Forbidden Zones and New Mineral Deposits. Mines? As in those forbidden zones? Hearing this key phrase, Asher instinctively pricked up his ears. President Rob's voice gradually lowered, making it impossible to catch more details. Still, Asher couldn't help but mull over this term that sounded so familiar. In this world inhabited by beasts, its size was twice that of Earth's. Beyond the 70% that was ocean, the landmass was significantly larger as well. Humans had built cities and civilizations in fully explored and relatively safe areas, but the land they occupied was ultimately limited. Every nation and city had their own unexplored forbidden zones. These areas were teeming with powerful or weak wild beasts, various herbs, and minerals. Yet, more often than not, they were filled with omnipresent danger and the law of the jungle. Unyielding beasts ruled the wilderness, battling fiercely amongst themselves in a realm of bloodshed and violence. But they also presented opportunities and resources. Every beastmaster, regardless of their level, had some need for the forbidden zones. Around these zones, ordinary people and beastmasters had established unique business circles, exploration teams, trading markets, and so on. Thus, despite the inherent dangers, forbidden zones had become the backbone of each city's secondary industries. As the provincial capital, Radiant City's development relied heavily on its resources, but the neighboring New York City's rapid growth, comparable to Radiant City despite lacking a top-tier university, was largely due to the forbidden zone under its jurisdiction. Although only 35% of New York City's forbidden zone had been explored and developed, the discovered resources included crimson fire fruits, a favorite among fire element pet beasts. These fruits could purify flames and were indispensable in certain pet evolution processes, ensuring a steady flow of beastmasters to the city. The annual revenue from this alone was considerable. Mineral deposits, or more specifically underground or veins, were classified into active mines and dormant mines. Active mines referred to extractable veins yielding specific attribute ores, while dormant mines were non-extractable veins containing vast quantities of attribute-specific energy. If a mineral deposit was discovered in a forbidden zone, whether active or dormant, it would be highly sought after by beastmasters. Active mines provided abundant resources. Although the energy and purity of specific attribute ores weren't as high as attribute energy stones, they made up for it with sheer volume, affordability, and availability. Dormant mines couldn't produce ores because the energy wasn't concentrated enough to solidify. However, they were ideal for attribute-specific pet training and cultivation, often delivering twice the results with half the effort. With some luck, one might even unearth attribute-specific herbs within the mine's bounds. The value of these rare herbs alone made some dormant mines even more popular than active ones. Listening to President Rob's phone call, Asher pieced it together. Had New York City's Forbidden Zone uncovered a new mineral deposit? About half an hour later, President Rob ended the call and approached Asher, his face filled with apology. Sorry to keep you waiting. I couldn't put this off. Uncle Rob, it's only natural for someone as busy as the Beastmaster Association's president. Asher shook his head, genuinely unfazed. You've already taken time out of your day to help me. I'm the one causing delays. Seeing Asher's sincere attitude, President Rob's impression of him improved even further. Initially, President Rob's goodwill toward Asher stemmed from the honeybug evolution matter and Iris's heartfelt gratitude, which had highlighted Asher's potential value. President Rob considered his efforts to build rapport with Asher an investment. But Asher's composed and respectful demeanor, combined with his sharp mind, only enhanced President Rob's satisfaction with him. The more President Rob thought about Asher's age and accomplishments, the more convinced he became that this young man was no ordinary talent. His rise to prominence was only a matter of time, and establishing a good relationship early on was undoubtedly a wise choice. As they walked to the equipment room to print Asher's ID card, their casual conversation flowed smoothly. When the timing felt right, Asher, with a gentle yet curious smile, asked, "Uncle Rob, just now on the call, I overheard something about a mineral deposit. Has a new one been discovered in New York City's Forbidden Zone?" Pausing briefly, Asher gauged President Rob's reaction before continuing. "Is this something you can share? I just happened to overhear and couldn't help but wonder." President Rob wasn't offended. After all, he'd taken the call in Asher's presence. It was only natural for someone to pick up on a few keywords, especially something as enticing as a mineral deposit. Indeed, a mineral deposit, President Rob admitted. "Just a week ago, we discovered a vein brimming with fire attribute energy within New York City's Forbidden Zone. For New York City and its Beast Masters, this is an enormous resource windfall." Asher nodded in agreement. Mineral deposits were undeniably invaluable to Beast Masters. He couldn't resist asking, "Is it active or dormant?" "We're not sure yet," President Rob said, shaking his head. "Preliminary surveys show the deposit is rich in energy, but whether it can yield ores requires further exploration and study. The area hasn't been opened yet for this very reason. The level of danger is still unknown, and we need specialized teams to assess it." Asher nodded, understanding the rationale. The discovery of a mineral deposit was cause for excitement, but its specifics, including the risks involved, needed thorough investigation. Still, the fact that it was a fire attribute deposit left Asher deeply intrigued, especially if it turned out to be a dormant mine. Such a place would be a godsend for him. In fire attribute dormant mines, certain special herbs could help fire attribute pet beasts enhance their mastery of flames. For beasts with high perception, they might even directly grasp the elusive essence flame. Considering that Little Raven would eventually evolve into a three-legged golden crow, surely its perception wouldn't be low. Before this, Asher had considered seeking out a fire attribute dormant mine to try his luck. However, the 3 dormant fire mines in the country had all been developed for over 50 years. With countless fire beast masters frequenting them, even the surface layers had been picked clean. Expecting to find usable herbs there, he'd have better luck buying a lottery ticket. But now, a brand new, untouched fire attribute mineral deposit had been discovered in New York City. How could Asher not be tempted? Was he supposed to just sit on his hands? Even if it turned out to be an active mine, he thought of June's little fire fox. For it, this would also be a golden opportunity. Although active mines lacked the concentrated energy of dormant mines, they still offered environments far more conducive to fire attribute pet training than ordinary settings. Spending 10 days or so there might just push the fire fox into evolution. Resolving himself, Asher glanced at President Rob, who was printing his ID card, and said, "Uncle Rob, if you're putting together a team to investigate the deposit, could you include me?" President Rob froze mid-motion, leaving only the sound of the printers whirring in the room. Clearly, President Rob hadn't expected Asher to make such a bold and risky request. Mineral deposits aren't playgrounds, you know, and your pet isn't even fire attribute, President Rob said, neither rejecting nor agreeing. Hearing this, Asher sensed an opening. All he needed was a convincing reason to sway President Rob. A myriad of ideas flashed through his mind before he settled on one that aligned with President Rob's interests and position. A faint smile played on Asher's lips. If June and Ivy had been present, they would have immediately recognized this as the same smile Asher had used to sweet-talk them. Now he was ready to launch into another round of yapping. "President Rob," Asher switched to a formal tone, "would you like to hear about my recent research?" Then begin the crusade of Asher, the legendary yapper. Chapter 34, The Military Order. President Rob was bewildered. Research? What kind of research could Asher possibly have? But recalling the crucial help Asher had provided during the butterfly evolution process, President Rob's interest was piqued. "All right, let's hear it. It's like this. After discovering the evolution of the honey bug, I've developed some personal thoughts on pet evolution. With the help of friends, I've even started researching new evolution paths for pets. Asher began with a bombshell. President Rob's confusion deepened. What is this? Asher, a student with no formal understanding of pet evolution, was self-studying and experimenting, and he claimed to have discovered something? If it wasn't Asher speaking, President Rob would have thrown him out. Who's spouting nonsense here? Discovering a new evolution path for pets isn't something you can achieve just by reading a couple of books. Does he think the millions spent annually on research institutes are a joke? Asher this? President Rob's favorable impression of Asher plummeted. His face darkened visibly. Unfazed, Asher pressed on. Uncle Rob, I'm not joking. Let me put it this way. I've made a new discovery. But please, don't let this leak. President Rob rolled his eyes, signaling Asher to continue. You might as well hear what secret discovery this was. Affinity, Asher declared solemnly. President Rob frowned, his expression shifting slightly. Affinity? What does that have to do with pet evolution? Drawing from the spiel he had used on June, Ivy, and Iris, Asher added refinements, making his reasoning sound even more plausible and polished. So that's the gist of it. I believe the honeybug's evolution into a fairy butterfly was closely linked to the bond, or affinity, between the Beastmaster and the pet. Building on this, I want to explore whether other extraordinary creatures can evolve through a similar method. Asher's theory sent President Rob into deep thought. As the president of New York City's Beastmaster Alliance, President Rob wasn't a professional in pet evolution, but his interactions with professors and Beastmasters exposed him to an abundance of related knowledge. At first glance, Asher's hypothesis seemed plausible and even intriguing. Had this theory come from Iris or a professor specializing in evolution studies, President Rob might have immediately believed it and allocated resources without hesitation. But coming from Asher, President Rob hesitated for a few minutes. Your argument makes sense, but how do you plan to prove it? The skepticism in his tone was evident. It couldn't be helped. Asher lacked sufficient academic credentials or tangible results. The honeybug's evolution seemed like a fluke, so President Rob couldn't base resource allocation on faith alone. Asher understood President Rob's perspective. Besides, he wasn't looking for resources from the Beastmaster Alliance. June's little fire fox is the newest subject of my affinity experiments, Asher revealed. He anticipated the fire fox would meet all its evolution requirements within a month, so informing President Rob early was a strategic move. Fixing President Rob with an earnest gaze, Asher added, My goal in joining the expedition to the fire-aligned geomine is to see whether its environment can promote the fire fox's evolution or provide it with beneficial herbs. Asher cleverly redirected Little Raven's potential use of the mine toward the fire fox. His reasoning was seamless and unforced. I'm not asking for rare resources. All I need is an opportunity to join the exploration, permission for later cultivation in the geomine, and maybe a few valuable herbs. That's it. The first two requests were manageable. The last one, valuable herbs, was trickier. According to the rules governing forbidden zones, Beastmasters entering these areas had to pay a deposit. The amount depended on the zone and planned duration of stay. If a Beastmaster failed to return within the stipulated time, exploration teams stationed in the zone would search for them. Whether or not the Beastmaster was found, the deposit served as payment for the team's efforts. If rescued, the Beastmaster also had to pay additional compensation. Most Beastmasters didn't begrudge the cost. Their lives mattered more. If they returned on time, the deposit went to the Alliance. Beastmasters could also take 2 high-grade resources from the area or a certain weight of mid to low-grade resources. Any excess could be purchased at 50% of the market price. It was a lucrative system. Many rare herbs and minerals fetched millions on the market, some being priceless. Taking these resources at half price meant enormous profits, even if one didn't use them personally. However, the higher the grade of resources, the more likely powerful beasts lurked nearby. A single misstep could cost a Beastmaster their life. Opportunity came with risk. Fair enough. What Asher wanted, President Rob could provide within his authority. Compared to the resources allocated annually to professional professors, Asher's requests were negligible. After deliberating for a moment, President Rob asked, I've got one question. How do you quantify this affinity you're talking about? Asher mentally applauded President Rob. As expected of New York City's Alliance president, he hit the nail on the head. Well, inspiration struck Asher under pressure. This is just a theory, but during interactions, emotional fluctuations between the Beastmaster and their pet might create unique mental waves. Couldn't we capture and quantify these waves with instruments? I think these fluctuations might represent the affinity between a Beastmaster and their pet. But as for how to standardize the numerical values, that needs more careful study. Improvising on the spot, Asher delivered an explanation that sounded reasonable, if only barely. President Rob saw through his act immediately. You just made that up, didn't you? Asher smiled faintly, saying nothing. Hey, who said I'd play along? President Rob rolled his eyes, but chuckled, his earlier sternness fading. At first, I thought you were spouting nonsense. But as I listened, I realized your idea isn't entirely without merit. I just don't trust you enough. President Rob didn't sugarcoat his words. Asher nodded. I get it. Trust takes time to grow. Without seeds, how can a flower of trust bloom? But I hope you'll give me a chance to prove myself. Ironically, the improvisation that President Rob dismissed made him take Asher's earlier claims more seriously. After a brief pause, President Rob declared, Fine, I'll agree to your terms. But you have to give me a military order. Prove that extraordinary creature's evolution is linked to this affinity you mentioned. It doesn't even have to be a new evolution path, as long as there are results. If the fire fox evolved into a flame fox, that'd suffice. After all, not every fire fox could evolve into a flame fox. As long as Asher proved the connection between affinity and evolution, President Rob would be satisfied. If you fail, you'll owe the Beastmaster Alliance and work to repay your debt. Don't underestimate me. Asher's confident smile spread. By the end, you'll be shocked, Uncle Rob. Chapter 35, Reunion. I'll be watching closely, President Rob said with a smile. He neither confirmed nor denied his belief in it, but added after a pause, Don't worry. Before your hypothesis is verified, I won't tell anyone about it. As he spoke, President Rob winked at Asher. Asher wasn't aware of the exact research topics on extraordinary creatures pursued by beast evolution professors in other provinces, but he had a general understanding of what the professors in New York City were working on. The couple Henry and Marie were reportedly studying new evolution paths for the Litile Fire Fox and the Blazing Flame Hound, and it seemed their research was nearing a breakthrough. If they found out that Asher was attempting to evolve that Fire Fox, how they would view his actions was anyone's guess. President Rob's reassurance eased Asher's mind. After exchanging a few more pleasantries with President Rob and agreeing to inspect the ore deposit in the Forbidden Zone the following day, Asher left the Beastmaster Alliance. When he saw the sunlight outside, a weight finally lifted from his chest. Though the process had been a little bumpy, Asher knew he'd made the right gamble and successfully earned President Rob's initial trust. What he needed to do next was confirm the usage of the ore deposit and push June to continue training the Litile Firefox. But before all that, Asher released Little Raven. After being cooped up in the beast space for several hours, Little Raven immediately hopped onto Asher's shoulder, frolicking around excitedly. Although the beast space allowed beast companions to rest, most creatures, except during necessary periods of rest, disliked staying in the space. Little Raven was especially like this. Compared to other Beastmasters, Asher had more reason to be on edge. Little Raven could freely enter and exit his beast space in the mental sea, and if Little Raven got upset, she might just come out on her own. That Little Raven had stayed in the beast space for nearly 2 hours today was all thanks to Asher's relentless persuasion from the previous night. All right, don't act like you've finally been let out after being locked up for ages, Asher said with a chuckle, reaching out to nudge Little Raven's round body. People might think I've been mistreating you. Little Raven rubbed against his outstretched finger and stared at him with her big, beady eyes, unblinking. Asher, darn it, his non-existent conscience throbbed. How about I buy you some snacks? Asher, unable to resist her adorable gaze, waved the white flag. Little Raven, carrot, carrot. Asher consoled himself. This wasn't indulgence without principles. It was just that now that he had a new source of income, he couldn't let little Raven live a frugal life with him anymore. Investing in beast companions was just another way to invest in the future. The next day, Asher woke up early with faint dark circles under his eyes. The reason? Asher couldn't fall asleep the night before, tossing and turning, eventually getting up in the middle of the night to try another 10-pull in the gacha. And he couldn't resist. The result of that 10-pull? 9 empty draws and a single white-grade item, Advanced Herbal Compendium. Asher was speechless, and even more sleepless. Even when he managed to close his eyes, he'd suddenly snap them open, scolding himself internally for his foolish late-night impulse. The moonless night had practically screamed bad luck, hadn't it? He consoled himself by thinking it was just to set up a lucky streak for his next pull, guaranteed to get a skill for the Firefox Queen. After eating a larger-than-usual breakfast, Asher shouldered his pre-packed bag, opened a ride-hailing app on his phone, and prepared to head to the outskirts of the Forbidden Zone to rendezvous with the exploration team arranged by President Rob. Little Raven stood energetically on his shoulder, her shiny black eyes seemingly glowing with excitement for the day's activities. "You can come with me, but no running off on your own," Asher said, turning to Little Raven and establishing some ground rules. Little Raven tilted her head, her little tuft of hair bobbing as she shot him a disgruntled look, as if to say, "Don't you trust me?" "Asher, not entirely. I trust you. I trust you," Asher replied with a helpless smile. "If I don't trust my little Raven, who else would I trust?" Satisfied, Little Raven withdrew her intense gaze. Since Asher had set out a bit early, he had to wait a while before a driver accepted the ride. Despite this, he still arrived at the Forbidden Zone's outskirts over 40 minutes ahead of the scheduled time. Then, Asher was left utterly awestruck by the sight before him. No amount of information from the internet, written descriptions, or secondhand accounts could compare to seeing it with his own eyes. Stretching for thousands of meters with no visible beginning or end, the dark green-black walls, made of an unknown material, resembled a massive, impenetrable fortress. Beast masters with armored rhinos patrolled the top, visible only faintly from below. From his readings, Asher knew that these walls were built to prevent wild and untamable beasts from wreaking havoc in the city. The beast masters stationed here were all 5th rank or higher, officially employed, well-paid, and tasked with grueling work. The moment an attack or damage to a section of the wall was detected, they had to act immediately to eliminate the threat. If they couldn't resist the attack, they were to hold the line at all costs, buying time for stronger beast masters to arrive. During certain critical periods, the walls even served as barriers against beast tides, though the last recorded beast tide attack had been over 5 centuries ago. For a long time, no more than 10 beasts had ever gathered to assault the walls. Inside the walls, the scene was a lively bustle of makeshift stalls. Asher took it all in at a glance. The area was anything but quiet. The aroma of food, the bitter and tangy scent of herbs, the metallic tang of blood. These smells intertwined, carried by the wind, creating a unique blend of raw vitality and primal energy. It was enough to stir one's blood, evoking a primal desire to return to the wild. Little Raven, too, was seeing such a scene for the first time. Her feathers, which had been smooth and sleek, puffed up instantly in reaction to the lingering energy and bloodlust from the dismembered extraordinary creatures brought back inside the walls. Perched on Asher's shoulder, she now resembled a perfectly round black ball. Many passers-by gave Asher curious glances. Without sparing them a look, Asher walked straight to the city gate, immediately spotting the person in the photo President Rob had given him. It was a middle-aged man, fit and muscular, unlike the desk-bound President Rob. His armor-clad arms revealed lean, powerful muscles beneath. About 1.8 meters tall, he stood beside a massive bird nearly his own height. The bird, covered in sharp blue-green feathers that looked like weapons, had piercing, bronze-colored eyes and a black beak that exuded a deadly aura. "Hello," Asher greeted as their gazes met. "I'm Asher. I'll be relying on you to take me inside today." The man, Benjamin, instantly recalled his conversation with President Rob the day before. The discovery of an ore deposit in the Forbidden Zone had already spread among the veteran exploration teams operating there. Most were waiting for an official announcement to confirm the news. But before that could happen, Benjamin had received a commission from President Rob, the president of the Beastmaster Alliance, to investigate the deposit specifics. A lucrative deal and access to first-hand information. How could Benjamin refuse? But after finalizing the details, President Rob had added an extra condition. The team had to bring someone else along. No special treatment was required. They just had to ensure the person went in and came out safely. Benjamin had wanted to refuse outright. Exploration missions and escort tasks were two entirely different things. Was President Rob trying to get two jobs done for the price of one? I'll pay extra. President Rob's three light words had shut down Benjamin's protests before they could leave his mouth. Trying to exploit them for free? No way. Adding money? Everything was negotiable. As for who this extra person was, it didn't matter. Maybe President Rob just didn't trust them completely and wanted someone to keep an eye on things. Fine. They'd treat this person like a VIP and get on with it. But seeing how ridiculously young Asher was, obviously neither a professor, an expert, nor a spy, Benjamin couldn't help but second-guess his assumptions. Could it be President Rob is sending his son along to gain some experience?